Hey, I hope you're having a good day. To everyone that's watching this, to anyone that's watching this, hope you're having a good day. Um, yeah, I hope you're having a good day. I'm not sure how everyone is doing, but I hope whoever's watching is having a good day. I hope whatever that you're trying to achieve, I hope whatever you're trying to whatever you're trying to achieve, I hope God gives it to you. Um, I hope God gives you whatever you're trying to achieve, especially in the midst of the world we're living in today. You know, where it's not an easy road. You know, it's not a straight road. You know, it's not an easy road, right? Um, you know, it's so much you're trying to juggle. It's so much you're trying to achieve. You know, all in a space of time, right? All in a space of who knows how much, you know, who knows how much time um you're trying to achieve everything in, you know. And I think that's where pressure sometimes comes, when you're trying to, you know, achieve so much in a space of a few years, you know. And then you have like other pressures too, you know, from family, or because I know sometimes, you know, our families, especially our moms, and like more so our moms, you know, they pressure us to, you know, to get your life together, you know, to finish school, you know. And then you're living in another reality too, right? You know, that's different from your parents, right? Because in your parents, where your parents are coming from, right, they're not aware of the reality in which you're living in, right? You know, they're not aware of the pressures that you're facing, right? Of, let's say, school, you know, of school, you know, trying to look, you know, especially if you're like a female that's out there, even males too, right? Um, but yeah, you know, the pressures of trying to, you know, look the same, right? You know, we also place this pressure. I mean, society puts that pressure on people where they have to look a certain way. You know, they have to look a certain way. Um, you know, they have to look a certain way, right? And when you see, when you get on social media, right, that's where that's where a lot of the unrest that's where a lot of the unrest is, right? That's where a lot of the comparing, you know, comparing to your counterparts, right? You know, you might see people who look, you know, they look more, let's say, younger. You know, they look more beautiful, they look more um let's just say they look more beautiful, right? And so, you know, and then in your own mind, you're like, you know, you're trying to not just look up to a standard, but you're also trying to, you know, get other stuff to your other stuff together, right? And so all of this sometimes, you know, can put you in a place of, you know, a lot of unrest, you know, a lot of pressure. um a lot of tense, um a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, right? Mental stress, emotional stress, physical stress, right? Where your body starts to, you know, you don't even feel good about just how you feel in general, you know, because of the stress, right? Because sometimes, you know, we just think stress is a emotional or a psychological thing, right? But it also affects the physical too, right? It affects how you feel, you know. And so you might look at yourself in the mirror, or you just might look at yourself, and you might think to yourself like, man, like I'm ugly, right? Like you might think, man, I'm ugly, but it might not be how you. It's not that you're ugly, but it might just be the fact that you're stressed out. The fact that you have a lot of unnecessary. I wouldn't say unnecessary, but just a lot of stress, right? Because like I said, the stress, right? Like stress is bound to happen, right? Like stress is something that everybody has to deal with. But I think I think it's just about like how you handle it, right? You can let it affect you, right, to where it starts to affect your physical health, right? Where it starts to affect your eating habits, right? Where it starts to affect your sense of control, right? Inner control, right? You can let it affect you to that level, right? Or you can know how to manage it, right? It's all about how you manage stress. It's not about feeling stressed. Like everybody has different stressors, right? You could be doing nothing and you could still be stressed, right? So stress is something that's bound to happen, but like I think it's just about like how you manage it, how you cope with it, not letting the outside things affect you, right? Not letting things that you have no control over affect you, right? Not letting that, sort of lead you to because there's always one thing that leads to the other, right? Like let's say for example, this morning, let's say you was driving and you was like, let's say the roads were busy, right? Let's say the roads were busy this morning. And so, let's say that stressor, right? Because that is a stressor, right? Because, the road, you're trying to get to your destination, right? And then there's like, it's these, like all these cars are making it harder for you to get to your destination, right? And so, this is a stressor, right? And so, this could, so let's say, seeing these cars on the roads, it pisses you off, right? And now you're pissed. And then let's say now the fact that you're pissed, right? Like let's say you go and you start doing something else, right? Like let's say you get let's say you start yelling at somebody, or let's say you start eating, like let's say your way of trying to cope is like eating, right? And so now it's like, it all started with one stressor, right? And that one stressor led to other things, right? And so it's just about like cutting that off, right? Like not letting that one stressor. It's all how you perceive it, right? Like sometimes you could be on the road and you have all these cars, right? Like you can look at it as, man, like these cars are making it harder for me to get to my destination, right? Or you can look at it as, as an opportunity to be patient, right? Like an opportunity to test how patient you can be as a person, right? Or you can just use it as some sort of opportunity, right? Opportunity to learn, right? Like, you can use that as an opportunity, right? I mean, I'm just thinking of one example, right? But there's many examples of how like you can turn, you being blocked on the road into an opportunity, right? And so the moral is just, it's all about changing your perception, right? Looking at something, seeing it in a different way, right? Seeing it in a positive in a positive more than negative, right? Not letting the stressors, right, affect you, right? And yeah, and like I said, to go back to the feeling ugly, right? Sometimes it might not just be you that's feeling ugly, right? Or it's not just you looking ugly, right? It could just be the stressors and how that's taking a toll on your body, right? On your spirit. It's taking toll on your mental, your physical, right? To where you're drained, right? You lack energy, right? You lack a sense of motivation, right? Like a sense of energy, right? And so now it's like, now you feel already low. You already feel low, right? Because of that effect it has on your body, right? And so yeah, it's just about like coping with the stressors, right? You know, trying to boost your spirit, right? Trying to find ways to boost your spirit, trying to find and when it comes to stress, sometimes, like, I know for me, right, what helps me sometimes when I'm very, like, let's say tense or anxious, I take a break from whatever it is that I'm doing, right? Because let's say sometimes I might be learning something, right? Or I might be watching something where I'm like, let's say for some reason, like, it's just a lot of information that I'm taking in, right? And it causes me to be anxious, right? And stressed out. And also tense, right? Sometimes I would just just start exercising, right? And now you're using your physical, right? So it's all about just finding ways to deal with your stressors, right? And sometimes, like, as much as sometimes we think about our future as well, in terms of, we might be thinking about a lot of things, right? For everyone, it might be different, right? Some people might be thinking about finishing school, and at the same time trying to get married, right? Sometimes you might be thinking, oh, am I getting too old, right? I'm in school, but when am I going to get married, right? It's like a lot of people have a lot of different things that they're thinking of all at once, right? Right? Like, you have so much things that you might be thinking about, like, yeah, you might be thinking about so much things, right? And sometimes it's just about, like, I've said before, right? There's certain things you have no control over, right? You have no control over when someone, let's say, comes into your life, right? For those who are trying to get married, right? You have no control over that, right? You don't know when someone's going to come into your life. All you can do, right, is just do your part, right? In terms of, trying to work on yourself, right? And trying to, work on yourself internally and also externally, right? In terms of just maybe, trying to be the best person you can be, right? All together. Altogether, right, you have no control over when you will get married, right? That's something that's beyond your control, right? And like I said, it's just about putting in the effort, right? And yeah, so it's and at the same time, you should also sort of, like, sometimes also it's about, like, self-awareness, right? As much as sometimes our parents, they tell us finish school, this, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, my parents, like, oh, they put a lot of emphasis on school and education, right? But it's also about knowing myself, right? Knowing yourself as a person, right? Like, yeah, like, you could always finish school, right? School has no end line, right? Like, there's no deadline for education, right? There's people that finish school at 30. There's people that finish school at 40. There's people that finish school at 22. Like, you cannot compare yourself to other people, right? It's just about knowing yourself, right? And yeah, knowing yourself and what works for you, right? Like, what's important for you, right? Like, what is it that would make you happy, right? And doing that, right? And so, like I said, like, education, for example, right? Like, education is a lifelong process, right? Like you could be, learning something every moment, right? Like you could spend a few hours a day learning something, right? So education is a lifelong journey, right? You will always acquire education. There's no dead end. There's no like time limit to that, right? It's not like, because I know society puts time limits on things, right? They're like, by 25 you have to finish this, by this you have to get that, by this you have to be married, by this you have to have kids, right? And so society puts emphasis on these things, right? And sometimes, it's just about looking at yourself, right? And figuring out what is it that makes you happy, right? Put family, parents, put all that aside, right? I'm not saying to neglect what your parents are saying. I'm not saying don't listen to your parents, right? Take their advice, right? But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you, right? If, let's say, getting married is what's best for you at this time, right? Given, let's say, you're trying to save your deen, right? You're trying to fulfill half of your deen, right? Like you're trying to, because that's a priority, right? Like your deen is a priority in this world. Everything else is secondary, right? The fact that you got a education, college education, the fact you got a job, all these things are secondary, right? The deen is number one, right? Trying to fulfill that. And then after that, everything else can come after that, right? No one said, because I know we also have this thing in our head where it's like, if we get married, our life comes to an end. Like you can't study, you can't learn. Now it's just about kids. But that's a very shallow way of thinking about marriage, right? Like marriage should not put your life on hold or to an end. Marriage should enhance your life, right? Like it should make you a better person, right? It should make you more ambitious, right? It should make you more motivated, right? Like it should push you to even achieve more, right? Because now you have someone next to you that supports you, right? Someone that pushes you, that helps you, right? And so we have to change this narrative, right, about marriage and especially like, and I think it also comes from our culture, right? Where it's like, they look at things from a very dark, they make it very like very shallow, right? The way I don't know, because everybody, like I said, everybody has a way of looking at things, right? Some people could look at marriage as like a end of life, right? But someone else could look at marriage as the beginning to life, right? Like they're gonna look at that, they're gonna look at marriage as like, yo, my life, I'm gonna achieve even bigger things, right? Now that I'm married, right? Now that I have someone that helps me to be disciplined, right? Someone that supports me, someone that loves me, someone that pushes me, in terms of my spirituality, right? Someone that helps me get closer to God, right? Now, like, I'm going to become even more motivated. Like, now I'm going to even become more ambitious, right? I mean, I was ambitious before, but now I'm like, now I'm even more ambitious, right? And I don't want to ramble with this video, but it's like I said, it's just about like knowing yourself, right? Like knowing what it is that, you want out of life, right? I know a lot of us, like, we're living for other people, right? And things are attacking us from every angle, right? And it's so much in our minds that we're thinking about all at once, right? But sometimes you just gotta take a step back, take a deep breath, right? And put things into perspective, right? And know, like, yourself, like, what is it that is important to you, right? Like, what is it that is important for you? What is it that will make you happy, right? Like I said, forget pleasing your parents. Because even my mom and my dad, even like my parents even tell me, finish school, right? And I am, right? Like, I also know how important education is, right? But our parents also have to understand there's no set time, right? There's no set time that you should finish school, right? Like I said, some people go back to school at 30. Some people go back 40. Some people go, it all depends, right? Like, yeah, the sooner the better, right? But, you know, at the same time, you know, there's no time limit to when you'll achieve things, right? You know, the number one thing should be the deen, right? Like the number one factor, the number one thing we should take into factor is our deen, right? Like, where are we in terms with, like, where are we with God first, right? You know, and then it's like, now we can focus on everything else, right? And yeah, we could also do everything like, we could all do everything together too, right? It just depends on, you know, having someone that is supportive, right? Like having someone around you that supports you, you know, and having someone that's very, you know, open-minded too, right? Someone that is very understanding, right? Someone that, you know, yeah, that's very selfless, right? So that both of you guys can serve each other, right? And also help each other in different things, right? And yeah, man, because this society, it is hard, right? You know, a lot of people are trying to, and I know a lot of guys too, right? A lot of guys are trying to figure out their life and where they're trying to be and all that, right? And also with women too, right? Like, everybody's trying to figure things out, but at the end of the day, you have to know yourself. You know, you have to know what it is that you want. You have to sort of do like a self analyzation, right? Like, analyze yourself, and know what you want. Like, know what you want, and you know, and do that, right? As long as it's, you know, pleasing to God, you know, go for it, right? And yeah, that's just something I had on my mind this morning. Hope it helps someone that needs it, right? And yeah, take care, guys.